Hello, good day, everyone. Welcome to the Out of the Box Developer. Today's session, we're going to talk about open source, working with open source projects. So last week, or last session actually, we talked a little bit, we went through our chatbot conversation project, and we shared some tools that was very useful for ourselves to work with open sources. And today we're going to continue this discussion. Want to hear more from the people that was watching us, what they what they think about the project, and what is the biggest challenge for them, for you actually, to enter into to collaborate and participate into some open source projects. So tell me in the chat, type here, what is your biggest challenge by starting with open source projects? And I also wish to congrats every developer that is a mother, or every developer mothers for the Mother's Day that was yesterday, right? So yeah, congrats everyone. I hope you had a great holiday in your city. And I want to call my good friends here. So let me call our consultant on AI specialist, Java champion, Mani Sarkar. Hey Mani, how are you?
Hey, Hugo, I'm good. Thank you for having me here. How are you doing? Long time no speak.
Yes. We have been a lot busy, right, these days. And
It has been a busy 2 weeks, I must tell you. Yes. Yeah.
Great.
So thank you for
But
making the time to come and arrange this show, and also invite me and have me on board.
Great. Yeah, and we're gonna follow up here on this session, right?
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
And I also want to call our architect here, and now a Java specialist, but now a Python specialist as well, Pedro Cavallero. Hey, Pedro, how are you?
Hello, Hugo. Hello, Manny. Nice to be
Hello.
here. Well, yeah, happy Mother's Day to everybody, to every mom, every mother's here. I think I can say that our mothers are, well, my mother at least is one of the most important person in my life. When I started here as knowing computer, it was because of my mom. My mom said to me in 1992 or 1993, said, "Oh, son, I'm buying a new thing. I'm buying a computer." I said, "Oh, fantastic, mom. What is a computer?" Well, what's a computer was an important question at that time. I didn't know what is that. I said, "Oh, it's something you can write or work or something." Internet was not a thing at that time. I say, "Wow, I can say that changed my life," and I can say my mom, thank you so much for I'm being here today."
Great story, Pedro. Yeah, there's many people that influenced us a lot to make important decisions, and yeah, that was really something that changed your life, right?
Changed my life.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us, Pedro. Because I mean, these are small things that go a long way, isn't it? Like every of those small things, if they didn't happen in a sequence, you wouldn't be here with us on this show, and you would be somewhere else, probably. As good as this place, but not where your life has brought you, professionally and otherwise, right? The friends you've made, and the things you've done. So yeah, thanks for sharing that with us, because this will also kindle the same spirit in everybody else who's watching this show just now or later on, and they will be able to recollect and remember the same event and the same things.
Great. And yeah, now I also want to call our good friend here, mentor and career specialist, and Bruno Souza. Hey, Bruno, how are you?
Hey everyone.
Hello.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hello.
Good to see you here. Hey, Manny, how you doing? Hey,
All
Pedro.
good.
Awesome story, right? So, I think that's a good moment, right, to remember the mothers, right? So that's great. Awesome. And you, they're watching us. So good to be here with you. one more Monday to discuss the developer career. That's awesome.
Cool. So let's get started here. Once again, I want you guys, if you're watching us, please tell your name here on the comments to interact with you. If you have any question, please place here. And what is your biggest challenge in open source projects? So tell us. It will be great to have not four of us discussing. It is great to have you discussing with us together. So bring your ideas and your questions. And well, since we're gonna talk about open source projects, and we talk a little bit about our project, right, on chatbot conversation. So I want to bring a little bit of challenges that we have with the project and things that might be interesting to talk here. I don't know, Mani, I think you have some thoughts that we can start with this discussion.
Yeah, thank you. So firstly, I actually want to start saying thank you to all the three of you for making your time to come to this session, and also for taking on the idea on board that we'd like to start showing more practical things to our audience and to all those who look up to us for advice, because the last 16 or 18 sessions that we've been doing since early February to 2022, a lot of them were answering questions and going through theory, which is also important and which is the foundation of many things. But it's only recently we also started talking amongst ourselves, saying we'd like to show our audience, our fellow viewers, some practical things that really can churn more important and more related and relevant discussions. And so thanks to three of you for going on board with this. So last time, I think it was a bank holiday for a lot of us across the world. And so many of our viewers were having a good time and didn't attend. So I was thinking we should share the link of the video to the last session to our audience, so that in case they have missed it, they can have a quick view of it before we get started with this session. So I'm going to, I have the link here before me. I'm going to just share it with you guys in the chat. And if you can propagate it to everybody else who's going to be watching this show, that'll be really awesome, because that way we have our viewers who can take advantage of a previous session, and on the back of that, understand what we're talking about now. Because what I'm going to do now is probably going to be slightly the next level, and hopefully we'll all get into a discussion into some of those things that we would normally talk when we are working on an open source project. So that's
Money. Maybe one thing that you can do is just kind of do like a 2 to 5 minutes overview of what was discussed the last time.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I'm going to share my screen if I'm able to. I know the last time I had an issue.
While you're sharing the screen, Felipe here said a good challenge to find issues to contribute with, right? Yes, Felipe, it's always hard to, it's always complicated to find something to contribute with, because we want to contribute to something really big, sophisticated, something amazing. But a lot of times the project needs, for you to get started, right? So you need to start with small things. So my good suggestion, Felipe, is to start with small. Start with small things that you can do. Maybe you start to participate in this project with money. Maybe you can tell us a little bit how he started with the tiny little things that he was doing before he actually got more involved in the project, because I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, as you were talking about giving an overview, that'll basically mean walking through the project itself, right? So if everybody can see the screen that I'm sharing, is that visible?
Not yet. Hugo's
okay. It says
yes,
sharing videos. So
no. You were right. It is okay for you, but not available for everyone yet. Now you have to share again.
Oh, really? Okay. Let me try to share again.
Yes.
Is that visible now?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so this is well, let me get a better view of this. That's the editing view. So let me give a little bit of a background of the project, and I did speak about this last time as well. I was at a hackathon in the year 2021, actually 2019, at Facebook, and they were developing this. They've invited everybody to come in and do some work on their Facebook Messenger app, like build some cool stuff that you can build on top of it. And so, as part of one of the things that I did was to make the chatbot interactive, that it would talk to an AI system in the background, and the AI system would respond to user messages. So I took that idea further, and I said, why not? Why does it have to be one-to-one conversation? Why not, if lots of chatbots talk to each other, and it doesn't have to be the Facebook Messenger app, it can just be the chatbots talking to each other through an interface where we configure the interface to load up all the different chatbots, and they talk to each other. And from that was born this idea. So the model that I used for one of the chatbots is the model I actually developed at the hackathon. So from that, I spun off this project, and basically it started off with a very simple project, but it exploded further. Initially, when I developed the project, it was just one server and a couple of chatbots, and they were connecting with each other using REST API and REST endpoints. And one of the chatbots was written in Java using the ELIZA code base, if everybody's familiar with ELIZA. And the other one was developed in Python using the Roberta, the NLP model. Again, these were all very basic models, and at that time, all of it was running on my local machine as an app, and they were communicating with each other. So you can already understand, in some sense, you can say we were developing something like the microservices architecture, right? But I didn't have that in mind when I was working on it. So now came the time, how do I share this with the rest of the world? We all do this, right? Dockerize it, containerize it, put the whole application in a Docker container. And the moment you did that, and I did that, it was easy for me to deploy it and share it with the rest of the world, because all I needed to do is share a shell script, and it would go and download the Docker container from Docker Hub and run it on your computer, because everything that needed for the Docker container to run was available in that container. Well, then along the way came Hugo, because that's when we also started talking about this project on Out of the Box Developer. And Hugo got interested, and he actually helped. If you see this README page here, a lot of the layout simplification came from the hard work from Hugo. So, for example, in the beginning, if you see the history of the README page, there used to be lots of lines. We have reduced it to just 3 lines. And anybody who has a Docker instance, like we did this last week or last session, Pedro actually ran the whole thing on his computer without having to do anything, but just following these 3 lines. So, and then we developed it further. What we did is we then took each of the chatbots and we developed it using the different frameworks that we had. So you can see over here, we use the Halidin framework, the Quarkus, and the connecting world is just plain old Java. And it doesn't stop you from doing that. In fact, you can take any other framework that you have, Spring Boot or Micronaut, and you can emulate what we've done with the existing Halidin and Quarkus. So in short, that's what this project is about. Basically, run an app. It's all agnostic, language agnostic. They talk to each other with REST endpoint. You can put it in a container. And then we also did the next thing, which again, Hugo did great hard work in there, is we now can deploy this on one cloud instance called Oracle Cloud Interface Infrastructure. Sorry, and we have the code for it over here. Again, the instructions are in the file. You can follow through it. And so all of that is now also available on this GitHub repo, including screenshots and links to videos of our previous conversations. So if you're feeling lost, you can come here and watch these videos, go through these screenshots and documentation, and find yourself a way to develop this app. So that's kind of a long story of what we have been doing. And you can understand, we've been working across various time zones. So that was also a challenge. So I think in the meanwhile, we'll have probably questions coming from different folks. If anybody can tell me if there's any questions, then I'll be happy to answer them, and we all can take in turns.
I think you can just say hello, choose my ears that showed up there and say hello. Yes. And so, and everyone else that have questions and comments, please feel free. But I have a question, talking about trying to answer the question about which issues to solve. So Hugo, when you start there, right, Mani starts saying that there's all kinds of things that need to be done to run this project, and now you may come down to 3 lines. So why do you decide to do this? What made you start contribution with that part?
Oh yeah, I think the important thing is to ask what is the problem that money has currently, so I can focus on what is the biggest concern of the project owner here. In this case, money is the owner, and he created the whole repository and have plenty of things already very well structured. And at the first moment, I actually didn't know what else money needs to to be done here. Maybe it seems to be already a done project, but it was in money's roadmap to actually make it as simple as possible to other people start contributing. So because the purpose of this entire project is to enable people to start with AI and creating their own chatbots and then continue with their growth and career. And for me, it was very interesting project because there was a lot of tools that I actually use in my day-to-day in the work, and also some architectures that was features that was interesting to explore here. So I think the really important part is to ask questions, or at least if you are unsure or you don't have the contact with the person with the owner to ask the question, another very good tip that I have been using is to see what kind of documentations that they have that they need to be reviewed. And and if you go through the getting started documentation for the project, if you find something that's that didn't work in your environment, might be something that was not documented yet. And I got a lot of these kind of projects in my during my career, and I just started to contribute with that. And yeah, the community are very welcome for the problems or the fixes, the PRs that help them get done something that they don't have time to do. So I think that's the important part.
Cool. Thanks, Hugo, for the explanation on what was your first step and how you and why you contributed in the way you contributed, right? And in fact, when you started, it was like a snowball effect, right? In a positive way. Like you started with a simple thing, then you picked up another thing, another thing. Before you know, you already started working on the Terraform to deploy on Oracle Cloud infrastructure, and you also wrote this where this first issue, use WebSocket to communicate with chatbot. You also wrote the implementation for that, and the pull request is right here. One of these days we're going to pick it up, right?
Yes.
If you can see, well, I don't think the audience can see it here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to load it up in this page. So that's your pull request, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
so, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so I think you've come a long way with being a contributor, and you spend your free time. And these are really technical, high-level technical or deep dive technical topics to work on. And it's a very simple project anyways to start with, right? But you can see there are so many angles to it, right? So you have the cloud infrastructure angle, you've got the Terraform angle, you've got the Docker angle, and within that, you've got so many other things, right? You've got Java, Python, and then you have the communication protocols, right? You've got REST, you've got WebSocket, and so the list is endless, right? And we haven't even scraped the surface of data science and machine learning angles here yet, because you see, the models are the ones I was chasing. Was the reason I built this. I built this so I can test the models with each other, right? Is this chat model better than this chat model? You know, that was the whole purpose of it. And we are doing that very simply and basic. We haven't even touched those. When we start exploring them, then we fork into even further directions of learning, right? So there's so many layers to this thing. And you picked up an interesting one, because sometimes solving these low-hanging fruits and the what's the word here, cross-cutting concerns, when you solve some of those, it helps so many layers one after the other. Like, for example, the WebSocket feature, if you add them, then it makes it very easy to connect to the chat bot even through a browser, isn't it? You don't really need to write a client then anymore. If you have a browser and you're exposing a WebSocket, you can connect to the WebSocket and start communicating with it, right? And writing messages, and it'll write back responses. So this is what I really value about picking up the right low-hanging fruits.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really good. Sorry, go on, Pedro. You wanted to add in something.
Yeah, I want to add a comment because many times people ask me, "Oh, I want to learn some new technology, and well, I just see some videos, or I just do some exercises, and it doesn't feel like I'm learning this stuff."
Yeah.
So I could say, we could say, oh, if you were going to this kind of project, you would train all this stuff and learn much more, right?
Yeah. And it'll also be fun. Yeah. So I use this word end to end a lot. I think Bruno knows this from all the sessions I've done with him. I like the end to end flow and the cross-cutting concerns. I use those terminologies a lot. And for me, from both the technological and the learning perspective, a project like this, I didn't even know it would end up like that. That wasn't even my goal. You see, my goal was a simple goal, to solve a very simple problem, right? Make a user talk to a model, right, through an interface. And then it became slightly more sophisticated. Make the models talk to each other through an interface. I wasn't even aiming to make it an end-to-end cross-cutting concern project, right? I wasn't even aiming to make it like what it has become now. But as we kept building on it, and as I spoke to developers like Hugo, and Hugo has been one of the biggest contributors, but there have been others who've also contributed in different ways, I started getting new ideas, right? Why does it have to be language dependent? It can be language agnostic. So you use REST. Okay, then how do you port it to somebody? Okay, you port it through Docker containers. That's fine. Now it works on your local machine. But what if I want to run on the cloud? Okay, you still use the same Docker container, but then you write a Terraform layer around it, right? And once you have some of these basic bells and whistles in place, now we have created an interface which is quite much not as sophisticated as a hub and spoke architecture, like the hexagonal architecture. But we can think of it as, if somebody has to write a new chatbot, it's like a hub and spoke architecture, right? You build it separately, you just configure it, you connect it, and they're decoupled, right? They're not dependent on each other. That chatbot could be now written in Ruby, and the central server wouldn't know, and none of the chatbots would know whether it's written in Ruby or not. It would just send the same commands and get the responses, right? As long as you've written the chatbot in that protocol, using that protocol. And so it's now becoming, and in fact, this is what I was planning to do, is maybe if you have the time to do is, we could quickly draw a diagram of the architecture of what is the state of play at the moment, and like the bird's eye view of where things are, and we can quickly map cloud, local machine interface, Docker container, languages, models, and we're starting to form a picture that we never started off with, but it automatically has been formed. And a project like this, it doesn't have to be this specific project, but a project like this, if it covers these areas and angles, then it's fun to learn and fun to use it to learn new things. Like Hugo and I learned so much about Terraform and Docker and shell scripting and working collaboratively as well, right? Because Hugo's trying different things. Some things don't work on his Sao Paulo data center, and some things work on my London data center. And how do we make it work so it works for both of us? We've solved that problem, which means many of the other users who would come later on, if they have those data center problems, they can look at how we've solved it for our data centers, right? So things like that. And then the code is very agnostic as well, because you can just change a whole bunch of things and get it to work on, in theory, on GCP or AWS or another third-party cloud provider. And you don't have to change any line of code inside the application.
And many, any people could help on that. Like any people, if any people is listening to us here today and wanna help us, what they can do? They need to go to you, or they can just go to GitHub and find it.
Yeah, I mean, the simplest thing is, I think I've shared the link to the project. I'm going to share it again. The simplest thing to do is, I'm going to share the link again. Go to the landing page of the project, which is what you see here on the screen. Have a read of the README. Watch the videos. There's quite a few of them. But even before you watch the videos, you can do these first 3 lines, which everybody does. Clone the repository. Go into the repository folder. Make sure you have Docker installed, and then just run that one-liner command on your command line from inside that folder, and see the application download and run, right? To just get a feel of what the project is about, and watch it do things, right? The things it will do are simply what you will see in these videos here, and down below in the screenshot, you have these messages that you'll see, and those are the exact same messages, or more or less similar messages you'll see on your screen. So that's the first thing to do. Once you get a hang of it and you find it's fun, then you can start looking at the issues page. There's a whole number, and nobody needs to talk to anybody actually here. It's very self-explanatory, because Hugo has really helped me clean up the README. And now with these, Hugo and I did a bunch of sessions as well before we even started the out-of-the-box developer. We did a session with EL's platform, AI for Enterprise. And so we ran this whole thing on that session. So if people watch those, and also we had another out-of-the-box developer session the last time, and this one, it's more than enough answering all the questions, or many questions, to just get started, right? Then look, and the source code is very simple to understand. The last time when we were going through it, in fact, it's in our video, you could see there's only 1 line implementation, or a few lines implementation, to create this protocol that'll help communicate between the chatbots. So to answer your question is, they don't need to ask anybody anything. They can come to the landing page, watch the videos, run the app, and get started by looking at the issues page.
So I think
interesting issues to solve. Sorry, go on, Hugo.
Yes, sorry, man. So I just want to add that Felipe just asked about, it's difficult to find an issue. Here's some issues that you can find here to contribute. And here's some issues regarding to the project code itself. But there's some other things that is improved code quality, or also the documentation. If you see that there's something on our documentation that could be better presented by 4 other users or 4 other contributors, it always welcome. So yeah, I invite you to come here if you want something to start contributing. But of course, if you have already some project that you would like to work with, that is something interesting for you, like not long time ago, I contributed in the Corpus project. I went through their getting started and I found some issue in their getting started, and I updated the documentation for them. And that was so interesting that in the after that, in the end of the year, no, I think it was very recent, this year yet, Red Hat sent a T-shirt for me because I did a contribution on that period for them. So, and I was so happy with that T-shirt. Oh man, do I deserve it? I felt so good with that, and they did a good job with that. They motivate us to contribute more and more. That are such kind of interesting actions they do.
Yeah. Well, the good thing at the out of the box developer, we may not be able to at the moment give you a t-shirt or a sticker, but we can definitely bring you on this show. If you contribute to a project like this or any other project and you want to talk about it, you can become a guest. We are always looking for guests of all walks of life who do work in the software field to come and show us their work. And also, if you're contributing to this project, then it becomes even more interesting for us to bring you on and to show how you've contributed to a certain aspect of the project, because every aspect of this project you can find it in somewhere in some other project you're working on, or project you're working on in your workplace. And to emulate that and show the other viewers on how to do something like that is definitely going to be educational for everyone.
For sure. Let me ask you something about open source. I always hear this kind of questions like, okay, every different open source project has different process. So this project we can like just go to issues, but in other projects I may do something else, or like I see for example people always trying to look the open source project that they know, like, oh, a different framework or something. Uh, oh, oh, it would be why they are so difficult to get.
Yeah, so you got to understand, and maybe Hugo and Bruno and yourself will have different views on this, but my personal experience has been that um, there's a few categories. There's hobbyists who come up with an open source project and they don't know they will get a lot of attention or little attention, and they may not know how to manage all of that, because their forte is to write code and maybe bring it in the open source. But then there's the other category of developers who are organized, who know what they're expecting, and who they know that once they develop and make a software open like that, they will get a whole lot of people. So they create something like a protocol, like a system of flow, that when the people come into that project and want to contribute to it, and they may even have an idea of what are the different types of developers might be interested in their project. And then you have a third one, which is sometimes run by commercial outfits, profit organizations. So they might have yet another protocol which may be in between, or maybe like the second example I was talking about, but some more layers on top of it. So the degree of difficulty increases when the expectation of the person who brings the project in the open has to follow rules and regulations, right? So the second type of developer might be a bit more like a free and open-minded developer, but yet wants to have things organized. The first type of developer might be free and open-minded, but then may not have thought about, oh, I will be attracting a lot of developers, I need to have a protocol, I need to have a system in place. These three things can all create three different types of difficulties, if you can already see what I'm getting at. If you're not organized and you don't know what you, when I'm saying if you're not organized, doesn't mean you're disorganized. It's just you're not prepared for meeting your audience, then you won't have a protocol. And then to get to starting with the project will be a hit or a miss, right? With some people, you might just hit it off and the project just goes on, even if they don't have a protocol. With some other people, if they don't have a protocol, you can't hit it off, right? The second type of developers would be, they have a protocol, but then they have such a protocol. It could be anywhere between an easy protocol to a not an easy protocol, right? Same goes with the third one, where it might be less on the easy side, but more on the harder side, right? Because they want to be more strict with how they do things. All of these three different categories create three different types of difficulty on getting into it, right? So, but amongst them, like at least in the middle type developers, and maybe even the third type developers, there are amongst them also people who make things easier and are welcoming, right? Like mostly it is like how welcoming you are to your audience when they first start talking to you by either raising an issue or creating a pull request or asking a question. If you're not friendly, if you're not social, if you're not communicative with them, if you're not helpful with them, like if I didn't give Hugo any incentive on starting and creating the readme and didn't give him any hints and didn't show him the different things, and of course he contributed and appreciated his contributions, then it would be a much of an incentive for him. He would find it really hard to do every push, every commit, and then he would just give up and say, oh, I've got better things to do. So that's kind of my experience so far. So I don't know if that answers your question, but you could find flavors of this all across the internet with different types of projects. Again, everybody's mileage varies. Hugo and Bruno and Pedro might have different experiences. I know Bruno has got a lot of open source experience, so maybe some of the things I said resonates with you, Bruno, and maybe you want to add to that. And after that, Pedro and Hugo, you might want to follow on as well.
Bruno,
I think you're on mute.
Mute.
Yeah, because a lot of times it depends on the project, right? Some projects are active looking for people to participate. Some projects are actually run by companies, for example, and they're not really active. But I think that the projects that are more visible, they're more active, that are projects where the developers take the effort to really help newcomers, right? Because that is, I think that's the same thing if you're doing a project in your company, right? If a new person, you just hire a new person to work with you, and that person comes in and you're like, you don't help it out, you don't point to the right things, you don't show where the person can start, you don't help them understand the code, then they might take a long time to be effective, right? To actually start helping you, or maybe they never do, right? And they might just be on the sides and even decide to leave the company. And I think that on an open source project, the way I like to call those things, right? For me, an open source developer is a volunteer developer, right? That does not mean it doesn't receive to work on it, right? So many people are working from a company that wants to invest in open source, so they're being paid to work on open source project, right? But they're volunteers in the terms that they do what they want, right? They do the things that they want to do instead of things that the project owner tells them to do, right? And so because of that, every time someone joins a project, it's your job as a project owner to really bring them in and help them understand and participate on this. Because if you don't do it, they're going to look for another project, they're going to do something else. And I think we are all at some point in different projects and different things that we do, we all had the experience of, for example, wanting someone to help us out organize something, or wanting us to maybe organize a user group, organize the party of our kids, or maybe the end of the year part of the company. I mean, we want people to help us out, right? And because we centralize everything, we're doing everything, we don't tell people what they can help us with, then there's no help comes, right? And we suck and like, oh no, I'm doing all this alone, there's no one helping me, right? We get mad at that, but we forgot that to get help, we need to help.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a two-way street, and social coding is what's going to help, and not like the lone wolf coding, which used to happen before social coding became a norm.
Right.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything to that, Hugo, Pedro?
Yeah.
Go on.
One quick add here is an open source project or open source community have a common practice to create the contribution markdown that they help us to tell us how to contribute in that project. So that is a very good documentation. Usually there are very good documentation that helps you to getting started into the project, especially those big projects like Quarkus that I just mentioned, but also Microsoft, their repository also have this contribution markdown, and sometimes they are very rigid. If you don't follow the contribution markdown, they won't accept your PR, your contribution. They want to follow that pattern, that standard, so they can keep the project as clean as possible, or as organized as possible. And yeah, it's always a good idea to take a look on the contribution markdown. Yeah, I think that's one quick thing that might be interesting for people that is starting.
Pedro, you wanted to say something previously?
I would ask another question. It would be following what Bruno said. When you are contributing to open source, it's a volunteer job. So, and of course, we know that this very important thing we can do to our careers. But I would like to hear from Bruno what he can say about it as to people that says, "Oh, I'm not doing that because I'm not being paid by that for doing that."
Yeah, I think that in all volunteer activities, right? I think there is this tension of, I need to be paid, or I'm not being paid. I think open source is a good example of that. I see lots of people that tell me, so why would anyone contribute to open source, right? Why would you work? That's the expression, right? Why would you work for free for so and so, right? And the reality is that that's why I think it's a volunteer work, right? Because you're not actually working for free for them, right? You're working for you, right? You're doing the things that are important for you. You're doing the things that you want to do. You're doing the things that that you care about, because you want to learn, because you want to grow, because you want to meet people, because you want to add something to your resume, because you want to get a new job, right? Because you want to show up in the market, because you want to, there's so many reasons why people do things. And considering that the only reason why people do things is because they're being paid, that's I think that's an oversimplification. Actually, the best things that people do, they do because they're not being paid, right? I actually just saw today this meme that had this in one side, it was this guy carrying a box, right? Saying like, carrying heavy weights at your job, right? And they're like, you're like, oh, this is so heavy. Why people need this? My back hurts. And the other side had carrying heavy weights at the gym, right? So you're like very heavy weights. You're like all happy and everything. So in one side you're receiving money to carry a heavy weight. The other side you're actually paying money to carry a heavy weight, and you like it, right? So I think that's the same thing. When you're doing open source, you have the freedom to do what you want. That's why I call it volunteer work, right? So instead of while you're at work, you might be coding on a very maybe boring application that doesn't make a big impact, maybe not using amazing technology. But then at open source, you're actually working on the coolest thing you can find, right? Doing the most interesting thing with amazing people, right? So you might be looking for that, right? You might be looking that because you're it's exciting, right? So I think that now one thing to your question, Peter, I think is very important, is that people that participate on those activities, right? Participate in open source, participate in user groups, in volunteer events, people that do all those things, without considering why they want to do it, or what value they're bringing in, or what value that thing is bringing to them, those people will start and they'll give up, right? Because when you don't see the value, you're just going to stop, because it's just waste of time, right? But people that actually know that they're looking for value and know what kind of value they're looking for, those people continue and do more, right? Because they're going to get lots of results.
Yeah, I think +1, spot on that, because I think you've said this, but I want to add it and say it in a different angle as well. When we are working on open source projects, we are actually developing ourselves. And we need to be thankful to all those people who are involved, who are indirectly helping you grow and develop. Because just like Hugo was saying, and I think Bruno said earlier as well, when you start working on an open source project, you start interacting with all the amazing people who are behind that project, right? I mean, saying that in an ideal situation, we're always, in almost all cases, when you're working on an open source project, we are working with amazing people, because a project wouldn't be an open source project if it was not because amazing people wanted to make it open source, right? Otherwise, it would stay like a private closed source project. Secondly, when they are open source project, they already indirectly sign an unspoken contract with you that if you come to help me, we will help you. If we will help you, help us, right? Which means they are already signing the unspoken contract of mentoring you, whether you want it or not, right? Of course, if you don't want it, then you won't be part of the project. But once you start working, then you feel the mentoring, you will start liking it. And that's when all the altruistic nature comes in, where you spend all the sleepless nights, which I've done for many projects, trying to make something work. And then they guide you through saying, okay, you made it work, but this is the protocol, can you follow it? And then you also then touch on so many areas of software development process, including, mostly importantly, is communication. Then none of this would happen at a workplace, actually, because at a workplace, a lot of these things means they want something done, right? They may or may not sometimes have you mentored for it. They would expect it to work. You should know how to do it. That's why you're here. Whereas in an open source project, no, you don't know how to do it, right? No, it's not. You should. We'll teach you how to do it. And then once you get better, you teach other people how to do it. And then you make it better. So the whole paradigm, the whole model is quite different in a workplace. That's why that gym analogy is very interesting, right? I mean, people would, if they understand the value of this, they would actually pay to be an open source project. Because all these years of software development that I've done, I've learned most from open source contributions. And my open source contributions have led me to meet really amazing people and really amazing groups, where I would then do workshops with them. I've met Bruno several occasions, so many of those sessions. And like Bruno, I've met lots of other amazing people as well. You don't build those connections. If you don't build good connections, you can't learn from good developers. Because when you meet great people like Bruno and the other seasoned developers, they'll tell you, why don't you do this? Why don't you read this book? And they won't tell you directly. They'll talk about something and say, oh, these are the great books to read, or this is a great blog post to read. It saves you so much time of doing all the hunting to find out, oh, what should I read? What should I do? What should I write? What is the coolest stuff? No, they already know it, right? They'll just pass it on to you. So that's the great benefit of being part of an open source project. And if people are not noticing the value, that's when all these other questions come in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is for me. I've never questioned open source, because the moment I touched it, I saw the value.
But that's a very interesting thing that you said there, Money, because you said that when people see the value, they would pay to be on open source. That's exactly what I tell companies, right? When companies tell me, but Bruno, are we going to use this thing that's free, right? Or and I said, look, if you really notice the value of open source, you actually pay for it, right? Because if you get any software that you buy from anyone, what's the chance that software is going to come with source code that you can modify, that you can change, that you can use, you can redistribute? Like most times you have to pay extra and a lot of money to have access to the source code, right? So actually, when people realize the value of open source, it's a huge, huge value. You're totally right, Manny.
Yeah. I mean, so many companies and so many value-added services are now built around open source, right? I mean, the list just goes on. Red Hat is the greatest example, I'll say. And it's not like an example of 5 years and 10 years. How old is Red Hat? They've been doing this since inception, right? If I'm not mistaken. Bruno, you must know this better than me.
Red Hat started as an open source company from the beginning, right? And I think it's the greatest open source
and they never looked back. And they probably started with a small group of people, isn't it? Today, how many people work for Red Hat?
Yeah, so now actually we can see the value of open source because IBM bought Red Hat, right?
Yeah.
So I don't remember how much IBM paid for Red Hat, but that is the value of open source right there, right? A few $1 billion.
I don't think it's a few $1 billion. I think it's a double-digit $1 billion. If you
Google for Red Hat, I don't remember how much IBM bought Red Hat for. So.
Right. Okay. Anyways, but that's beside the point of the market valuation for it. The intangible value is what you get from being part of such projects, right? Because no one can put a price. And what I was going to say is, when you involve yourself in such projects, things you get from it, no one can take it away from you. I mean, if you want to release it off you, you cannot. It becomes part of you, right? Of your being. So that's the value. That's the meaning of the value. That it's intangible, and it's growing, and it stays with you.
Yeah. So interesting thing. So just kind of put it really quick here. So Max saying hello. Hey Max, how you doing? And Max is on collab time at Soja right now, right? So interesting enough, that that's, for example, So Java runs this collab time where you can sit down and you can work on things, you can, ask questions to each other. And I think that developers have been for many, many years, right, have been learning from each other, right? And I think that one thing that I say a lot about software development, because software development is more art than engineering, right? So there is engineering in software development, as is engineering in any kind of art, right? But but software development is a creative process. It has a big part of art in it. And what happens is that when you have something like this, the best way for you to learn it is by doing with others, right?
Yep.
And so open source is our is the way for us to collaborate, is the way for us to work together, so we can really learn about technology, right? So yeah, and I think that's great that what Max is doing, right? And actually we have a good friend and a Java champion here watching us. So that's Bazlur Haman. Hey, Bazlur.
Hello.
How you doing, man? If I'm not mistaken, Bazlur is in Canada, right? So hey, Bazlur, how you doing? Unless he's traveling, right? So good to have you here. Bazlur should come one day with us here, right, and have a conversation, because that would be great. All right.
We are growing more and more privileged, I would say, with more and more of the Java champions joining us.
Yes.
Just the last thing that you said, if I have to sum it up in one line, open source is the way of learning by doing. Or you can say open source is the means to learning by doing, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. I think that's actually it's a way for us developers, right, to do things together, unhindered by our companies, unhindered by our work contracts, unhindered by any kind of licensing, because the license allows us to go and share, right? Because there was one interesting thing, Money. I'm not sure how it was in England, right? But when I started software development here in Brazil, and in the past, you had things like applications in Visual Basic or in Clipper, right? So they're all interpreted languages. And actually, Clipper I think was compiled, right? But we had
Clipper was compiled. DBase4 was interpreted. You didn't mention DBase4. Fox Pro was interpreted.
Fox Pro was interpreted. So you had all this software that was interpreted, and then so basically you distribute the software with the source code, right? And we would get that source code and play around it and change things and work and improve things on it, but it was just not allowed, right? But we just didn't care, or we just didn't know. I don't know what it was, right? We didn't know that it was not allowed. We didn't care it was not allowed. I don't know, but actually that was the way that we learned it, right? By playing around with code from other people, right? So then when open source came along, because you have to remember that the open source definition, I mean, free software was defined earlier, right? But the open source definition just came in 1998, right? So actually 3 years after Java, right? So even Java is a good example, because when Java came out, it was not open source, right? Java was released under a Sun license that was not open source. You had the whole source code available. You could do anything you wanted with Java. The source code was there. You just did not have the permissions to do everything you wanted, right? You couldn't distribute your changes back, right? You could play around with it, but you're not allowed to distribute the changes, right? And so so all of those things, right? So we had this idea that once we have the source code, we can play around with it. But then the licensing prevent us from doing it. And the open source is the other way around, right? Open source makes the licensing in a way that we know that we can play with it. We know that we can share with others, right? We don't have to worry about the license. Yeah. We know that we can share. And I think this is such an amazing thing, because, I have a piece of code that I can work with, and I know I can send that to you, Money, right? And I know that if you do something with it, you can share with me what you did, and we both of us can work together to improve, right? So this is such an amazing opportunity for all of us. And I tell developers that, I don't care what companies tell about open source. I don't care what startups are. Oh yes, we should open source, should not. I understand that those discussions, right? So there's times that you should open source, times you don't, you should not. I do understand that, but that's for business discussion, right? It's a business discussion. But for developers, there's nothing better than open source, right?
Yeah,
so for
totally
developers,
agree.
you should be participating in open source. Doesn't matter which project, right? You should be doing this, because for us, there's nothing better in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, Hugo and I wouldn't be contributing on this project if it wasn't open source, and if the tools, the basic tools that we needed, which we covered in our previous session, to contribute to work with each other, like GitHub, VS Code, or Eclipse, or NetBeans, or IntelliJ. If we didn't have those, shell scripting, and tools, even like maybe in the past we didn't have so much of the video conferencing tools to go online and screen share, but with that has open source development has become even more powerful, right? Because now I can, and this is what Hugo and I did. We shared screens to say, Hugo said, this is not working for me. Oh, did you put that slash there? Because I see the slash is missing. Oh yes, okay, puts the slash, everything starts working fine. So things like that really help. Like the basic tools really help. And the most important is the source code shareability, right? If GitHub repositories have made that so much possible, we all work on the same source code, and we can replicate our changes, contribute our changes without breaking each other's work, and then it all gets like interleaved into the work, and then multiple people can work on it. It's not just 2 people across various time zones. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So Bruno, we have a little bit of time, but I was thinking, and the last time Pedro did it, and I was thinking this time you should help us do it. Try to clone the repository and run the shell scripts and see what happens. If it fails, it's okay. You can use this as a homework to fix it. So it's just, if you go to the README of the repository, which I think you can see on my screen, it's this.
Yeah. So let me share the screen again. So actually, Basil has some questions here, right?
Yeah. So while Basil is asking his questions, I suggest you clone the repository and go into the project directory and run that shell script and let me know what happens. It's all command line stuff. No IDE cloning and all that.
Okay. So let me get the.
Yeah. And maybe Pedro or Hugo, you can read out Basil's questions to us, and then we can continue with the chat. While Bruno is busy trying to prove to us that the software is portable and it runs on any computer.
Hugo, can you put that? Yeah.
Maybe not, right?
Open source security, the Basil said, open source security presents a wonderful platform for learning and expanding your network. Just last year, I began contributing to a Jakarta EE project, which provide me with an invaluable entry into the Jakarta EE community. It's been an incredible experience. I even had the privilege of being featured as a committer in one of the Eclipse's newsletter. Fantastic, Bachelor. Amazing. I'm seeing many discussions about the Jakarta EE projects in Soul Java. So if you're thinking that this is so far away from you, or far away from what you can do, man, at Soul Java is a community, one of the biggest community, Java community here in Brazil, and it is, and there you can find all the many guys that work on Java EE and Java EE projects, like the Maximilian, who was here, Otávio Santana, Gabriel, many people there. And I see sometimes some people say, oh, I don't know what to contribute. And I see many small contributions, like in documentations or all the small stuff, and starting and growing in this community. So of course, Basil is a Java champion and has lots to contribute, but everyone can get there. That's what this is important to see, right? In these projects, you can imagine how many Java champions there are in Jakarta EE project. I can't imagine. I can't
Well, that's
count.
a haven for people to go and learn from, because once you see how the strong developers of our industry are collaborating and developing something, which is how I learned from, is to watch how everybody else has been doing. I used to watch the newsletters and the discussion forums, and only later on I would jump in. But in that meantime, you get to see how all the strong developers are contributing, and that's a great learning experience. Just reading the newspapers is a contribution, because you build up that knowledge base to eventually step in and say certain things that can help progress the project further. And there's always help needed, like how Hugo was mentioning earlier, the README. And he also mentioned the contributions.md, which we don't have for our project, which kind of gave me an idea.
That's true.
I think I have it for another project, and I think
Mhm.
I can bring that into this project, and we can adapt it to this project. And I think there's a long way to go for that contribution.md. We also don't have technology lists, like a list of technologies that we've used and future potential technologies we can use to further this project. And I think that would bring in a lot of interest as well from people who want to learn more, or even want to get experience with the existing technologies that we have used.
Really cool. And this story, this example from Basler, I think it's the best one to see those invaluable things that you get on open source. So if you think just on money, that is things that probably much more than any money that you could earn here. Network, learning, your knowledge, getting hang together with people that likes to use the same tools that you like, and grow with them. I'm here. I'm stopped and my mind blown when Bruno compare a gym with the open source, and yeah, it's exactly, there's a place, there's an environment for free, accessible for everyone, that you can actually use to improve your knowledge, to gather your to grow in your career, to use the professional tools. Then, oh, really? We should be paying. No.
Yeah, when people start
not wanting to
recognizing
get
the
paid
value.
from. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
people start taking, then they will not go to courses. I wouldn't want to compare it with university, but they wouldn't want to go to these diploma courses and other courses they do, or online courses they do, which don't bring you and give you the practical experience that can only be accrued and earned through like applying yourself to such things over a long period of time. So it's not like a 6 months course, it's like a long period of time, consistently in different ways that a course could never cover. Right? So I think we could support Bruno by helping him screen share and walking him through any of the steps that's holding him back.
So one thing I want to do here really quick. Let me share.
Why don't you share your screen, and I'll stop sharing? So
this
is how we can develop open source and solve each of these problems, right? Screen share and
you don't need to stop sharing. That's okay. But the one thing I want to say, because you mentioned about having Java champions, and Basler mentioned about Jakarta EE, right? And so these are the top contributors of Jakarta EE in Q1 of this year, right?
Wow.
And so, Otavio shows up number 1, right? So, by the way, if you're watching us from anywhere from Europe, I'm going to be traveling for Otavio. He starts next month in all countries of Europe. But look who's here, number 11, right? So that's
Max.
Max. Wow. Fantastic.
Max that was here. Yeah, Max that was here with us. He was already joined us here before, and he's also was just here a few minutes ago talking to us, right? So Max is right there. In Jakarta E, right? So that's great. Just like
and Max is running all the collab times in Java every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So You can find him there
Very
easily.
dedicated person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm just thinking we did a mistake in this session. I should have invited Max to to share with us here how was the experience to get into the 11th year, most the biggest committer in Jakarta E. So congrats, Max. You are an inspiration here for everyone
And
wanting
Well,
to
even if
start open source.
he's still here, right? So yeah, so you can actually send the link to him, and he can join
Oh
us here
yeah,
if you
that's true.
because
yeah, you can have a
because
quick.
he's still replying to us right there, right? Uh, so Baslur, I'm not coming to JCon. No, I'm not. Unfortunately, I could not get a speaking slot there, but I'm going to speak in J Spring, and so because J Spring happens right in the middle of JCon, right? So JCon I think is 2021, 22 or something like this, or 21, 22, 23 or something like this, and J Spring is 21. So I'll be close by Baslur, but I'm not going to be there. But if you're going to be in JCon, Baslur, maybe you want to extend your trip a little bit and come with me to Munich, right? I'm going to do a presentation in Munich on the Saturday right after JCon. So you're going to be close by. So I'll be happy to have you there, and you can be a speaker there with me.
Are there any plans to have a transit via London? Any chance, Bruno? Is that part of your itinerary, or you're not revealing
London?
the secret?
So I'm gonna. It looks like the closest to London that I'm gonna be is gonna be Birmingham. How do I say the name of the city?
Birmingham.
Birmingham.
Or
Birmingham.
Birmingham.
Yes. Birmingham.
Birmingham. Yes.
Birmingham. I'm gonna be Birmingham. So it looks like
Okay.
an hour away from London, right? Something like this. 2 hours
A
away.
couple of hours away from London. Yeah, depending on what type of train you take. Yeah, it's not far away. It's doable. Okay, that's not a bad deal.
Right. So yeah. So because I'm gonna speak on the Manchester JavaScript group, and then in the Birmingham JavaScript group, and so I'm gonna be close.
Oh, very good. Okay, keep me posted. Keep us all posted. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely would like to. Maybe we could do a session from one of those venues. You never know. We could do a session like that, right?
Sure, that's for sure. Oh, Max is here, right? So Baslur going to be in Cologne in 22 of June. So Baslur, if you can extend your trip a little bit and come with me to Munich on the 24th, that would be awesome, right? I'm gonna be passing by Cologne in 23, so that would be great.
Oh,
Hello,
Max.
Hey Max, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. So thanks a lot for talking about my name in this live. So I'm very shiny by now. So thanks again for sending me the invite. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me a little bit. I know that maybe we are in a time. I think so. Am I right?
No, we are starting our next 1 hour.
Oh, great. Let's do this. I like to talk about open source.
We invited you to also let our audience know that you can get onto this session like that, just ad hoc. You don't need a prior invitation and screening and all that. We used to have people join in and leave. I think Pedro did that once a long time ago. And that is exactly how we operate here. You have an interesting thing to contribute, you can be on the show right on the day with no notice. And, just like you are here, Max, to share with us your contributions to the Jakarta project and open source in general. And I know we've been talking on Twitter as well on how we can do some more work with Graal VM and Graal Python on our chatbot components. So if someone can find that link of that conversation on Twitter, we can share it with the audience. You can already see Max is involved in those conversations with us as well. So Max is not just doing his Jakarta stuff and other things. He's also involved in the chatbot conversation with us. So more the reason for you to be here.
Oh, I learned through those days. I think since I got talking to the community, I realized that open source is more than code. It's about community. It's about people. And if you want to get started to contribute, why not to get started to talking to the people? I think it's the best way to get started. So if you want to get started to contribute, why not to go through with your preferred tool? For example, I love GraalVM as well. I love to work with Java. I love to work with TypeScript. Why not to work about the thing? So why not to get started? But as I said before, it's about people. So why not to help people? So many give me opportunity to talk about. Oh, Max, could you take a look on this project? Could you give me some more insight about that? And based on that, it gave me opportunity to learn more about GraalVM. And I learned, oh, looks like there are a specific tool inside of GraalVM. Why not to learn about that? So why not to share with the community? That's the reason why open source is a very incredible way to improve your career. So why not to do this? I know that it's more than philosophy thing. Am I right? So but open source is related to engineering stuff. So if you want to learn more about how to work with the best developers around the world, why not to get started from open source? I'm following Otávio Santana, and I have learned a lot about that. I never thought before that I will become a contributor, especially in Jakarta world. So it's a proof that it works. If you do, something will happen. So if you do not, nothing will happen. So I think Bruno already said that. So we need to be able to understand and learn new things. So I'm very happy to help people around the world about that. So that's all that I want to share right here. Okay.
That's good. That's awesome. And one interesting thing that Max, so Max is a privileged one, right? Because he works with Otávio, right, on his company, right? So they both work in the same company. But most of us, we don't have the chance to work with Otávio or with Money or with such an amazing people that are out there, right? So participating in open source is a great way for you to do exactly that, right? So well, and do you think that working with Otávio has helped you become number 11 in Jakarta this month, this quarter? Max?
Sorry, I repeat again. My headset is failing a little bit. Could you repeat again? Sorry, Bruno.
I'm saying that do you think that working with Otávio helped you participate better on Jakarta and become number 11 this quarter?
Yeah, well, we are friends. I'm sure about that. So it helped me a lot because I could asking him not only on the project side. I could talk to him through chat tools and something like that. But it's very interesting because sometimes we underestimate ourselves. To be honest, we take a look on the project and then we start to punish ourselves. Oh, I'm not good to do that. I will give up. But it's the worst thing, I think. So once I get started talking to Otávio, I could realize that, oh man, I give it a try. I gonna try to get started, and why not to take a look on the project in order to understand how those things works. It's a new world, man. So why not to pay attention with that? So of course, when we got Otávio as mentor in a project like that, we will get how can I say shortcuts to solve those things in easiest way. But I take a look that you can do this as well. So feel free to reach out to us and to talk more about the project. I will be very happy to help you to get started to contribute. So the diversity give us opportunity to learn more. So why not to get started about that? So, but I agree with you, Bruno. When we got good mentors like you, like Manny, like Pedro, Hugo, Otavio, Elder, so you reach out your goals quickly than you perceived before. So I think you must to do the first step. That I like to say to my friends. So you must do the first step. If you don't do anything, anything happens. So it's something I learned with you. That's it.
That's good, man. That's good. Okay, cool. All right. So someone said here, oh man, too many messages here in the chat. Vanya said I should go to the BMW museum, right, and get traditional beer, right? Okay, Munich. So Vanya, are you gonna be there, right? So let me know so we can actually meet. You know, looks like I'm gonna meet Mani in London and Vanya in Munich, right? And Baslur in Munich. So that's looked like a great trip.
Well, just to do a little bit of a spoiler there, Bruno. Vanya is based in Canada, unless she plans to take a trip to Munich around that same time,
I don't know.
going to any of the conferences. Then you would have the luck of drinking beer in a museum, in the BMW museum.
Yeah, that'll be good.
I just want to get a comment here from Andres. He ran our project then, Money. So he just shared here that he could start the chat bot and the bots are talking each other.
I saw that. Yes. So
yeah,
I was
faster than Bruno.
Yeah, I was going to check with Bruno. Pedro already read my mind. I was going to check with Bruno. Bruno, are you writing the core of Docker containers before you could compile it and get it running?
So the thing is, I recently changed computers and Docker's not running for some reason. So that's not a problem with your project. So I'm trying to figure that out here.
Yeah. Well, you could always screen share and we could help you tweak that and get it running if you like.
But I think we could. I think we are.
First, let me get Docker running.
It would be difficult to get Docker running now.
Yeah. I understand.
Let's
once you get Docker running, maybe in the next session, you can show off the whole thing working.
For sure.
So Docker is the only prime factor here that is a difference between it working and not working many times.
So I think we are reaching the end of the session today. And I just want to thank everyone for joining today, especially you that is watching us. And also special thanks for Max. I invited him in a very fashionable way. just send you a link and hey, come on and talk with us. But that was awesome opportunity for us to have you here. This session is a topic. It's totally related to what you just did and achieved it in Jakarta. So congrats for you once again. And hope to see a lot of more contributions from everyone that is watching us today. Yeah,
great. I know that it's late, but I'd like to, as we are talking about Jakarta, why not to mention about Jakarta? So it's a good book to talk about that. It's a book wrote by Elder Moraes, so it's a good one if you want to learn more about Jakarta. Why not to do that? So I just like to share it. I know that it's a, how can I say, it's a ceremonial thing that you used to do in the end of the session, and that's the reason why I separate that with me. Thanks again. So that's it. So thanks again for having me, and it will be a pleasure to talk to anyone about open source contribution, especially in Jakarta. So feel free to talk to me later. And that's it. Thanks again, Manny. Thanks again, Pedro, Hugo, and Bruno. Awesome session. Thanks to audience, public. So that's it. Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
Max,
You're
for
back.
joining
Thank
us.
you.
Great
Thanks
to
for
have you
joining
here. Come again in our next session and all the other sessions after that.
But I mean, why you're leaving? Let's finish the whole. You know, are you guys gonna talk about the books now or?
Yeah.
You stay
Yeah.
stay a little bit longer. We're gonna be
Right,
we're
I,
sharing
let's
I
go.
thought that.
Let's
Go.
Sorry,
You know,
I thought that
he's
Max had
already started
something.
the pitch, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
but I must go. Really, I must
Yeah.
go. That's the reason why
Max
I was
must
so quickly.
have to go. Okay.
cool. We
Now,
will
Max.
share your book. We will share your book contribution along the other books that we're going to be sharing. So
Okay.
thanks
Yes.
for being with
Cool.
us, Max, and thanks for sharing the book with us.
Bye. See ya. Bye bye. Have a good.
See
Take
you,
care,
Max.
Max. See you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
Let's
who's
start
the
with the
next?
round of books. You go. Over to you.
Okay. Over to me. Okay, I will grab this book. I think it's more related to the topic today. Let me just pick the link here. Is the book from Dale Carnegie. I just shared it in a few sessions ago, but I think it does make sense, still makes sense on this topic. So I would like to paste the link here. Like Max just said, open source is not just about the code, it's about community. So it's a great idea to have good communication skills in this environment. And as better as you go, you'll be more, you'll receive more invitations to contribute, or your PR will be more welcomed for every project. So this is a good book, not a very, how can I say, widely spread name. Yeah, very well-known book. And yeah, it's some great ideas here that might be helpful for everyone that would be joining open source projects. So that's my.
I do remember
my
briefly
tip
reading
for
that book. So I think it's quite a good read, and it's very different way of approaching this whole concept of personal relationships with others and communication with others.
Yeah. Well,
Cool.
I think
Who
I
wants
can
to be
share
next?
mine. I think I can
Yeah,
share
go
mine
ahead,
because
Pedro.
in the same path that Hugo said. Because
Mhm.
I wanted to share the servant. The servant is the story of leadership, a simple story of essence of leadership, right? So the idea is, if you want to be a leader, we need to be a servant. Like you need to help people. You need to mentor people. If you're talking to what we're talking here about the open source, it's totally related, right? Because Manny and Hugo, as leaders of an open source project, you are the leaders here, but you are helping people to bring them and to make them learn. So all this different way to look at leadership is what this book is all about. So I think it's a good
It complements complements with what Hugo just shared. I think the word that comes to my mind is servant leader, isn't it? A leader who's serving and leads by serving. So a servant leader, which is a terminology as well in this idea. Cool. Hugo, did you have a link to your book? It's easy to find them on Amazon. I can quickly find it for you.
I just shared it here on the chat already.
Oh, you did already. Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So I will share mine. Sort of related to what we were talking about today. We did touch a little bit about architecture. This is Clean Architecture from Bob Martin. Everybody knows him by Bob, but the official name on the book is Robert C. Martin. Highly recommend reading this book because this complements with his other books, especially the Clean Code book. But this is more about architecture, one or a couple of abstraction levels higher, but fairly important to understand this. And Bob Martin is a great writer and has explained these kinds of topics very well and clearly. So not fully complement with what Hugo and Pedro has shared, but definitely with the topic of the conversation today and what we've been covering, it's something to know about. So hence I wanted to share this with everybody.
And I think Bruno went to pick the
Bruno
book
has
now.
gone to fetch his link, which is a physical book.
No, I was trying to find, and I thought I didn't have it, but I actually remember where it was. So actually, I'm going to be very on topic here today. This book here is called Open Sources. Voices of the Open Source Revolution. So this book here has a lot of the top open source guys that define what open source is, and it was released many years ago. And then what happened was, that was the one I was actually looking for. There's a new version of it, 2.0, right? And that's the continued evolution of open sources. And actually, I'm on this book here, right? So I wrote one of the chapters of Open Source 2.0, right? And so that talks about actually is the chapter that talks about Java, right? So Java and open source. So if anyone wants to take a look about open source a little bit more and have opinions, so those two books are great because they complement each other. They're totally each chapter is a different thing, right? So they're totally different, very complementary. And so open sources, I recommend both from O'Reilly. And I can't really tell the name of everyone here because there's just a lot of people.
Cool.
Really cool. And yeah, with today's discussions, Basil just sent a message here. He mentioned here, now that everyone talks about AI, very, very relevant, I thought. I believe that's about open sources, right, Basil? And yeah, I can't stop thinking that I need to pay something for money after all this discussion, because I was working on the open source project that he created, and that was a room for many experiences and learnings. But yeah, money, I think I will stay with a pint when I go to, when someday if I go to the London, and I hope it's fine for you.
Yeah, I think that's a good offer. I'll request for something else than a pint, but making that gesture is still valuable, and I respect it, and thank you for thinking about it. But yeah, you don't have to really pay me back with anything. Just share that with somebody else.
Oh, great.
Help somebody else
that's powerful.
elevate and get that experience, and you can use the project as a launching pad for their experiences and your experiences, and you could be the mentor for them, because as the project gets more and more developed, there'll be more and more places and reasons and areas to use as a learning tool to help other people grow.
Cool.
Yeah, seems like Basil shared a book here, but I couldn't get it. There were so many comments here. I missed your book, Basil. If you can share here again, it would be great. So I can put here to everyone. Yeah, I can't get here. But yeah, I think that's it. Any last thought from you guys?
Yeah, there's a lot of mess I can find. Okay, so so one thing that's I think that was relevant for today is that there was that's a discussion because Basil mentioned here about AI, right? And so there was a discussion around internal to Google, right? And one of the documents was leaked to the internet, right? Where just like one person in Google, I'm not sure how many I think like that way, right? Was very worried about how open source and AI, right? So open source AI, how much that's advancing and how much it's actually leaving Google AI team and the Open AI team behind, right? So, that's an interesting document to take a look. Maybe that could be an interesting discussion for next time they're here. But yes, open source and AI are things that are going hand in hand, right? If you're interested in open source, you're interested in AI, those are two very interesting things that you should be working on right now. And it's a movement that is causing waves. So just to to say the least here.
And you can stay relevant in that movement by starting to contribute to this project, because it has both the angles of open source and AI in it. If you look closely, it's right under our noses, and it's going to be growing in leaps and bounds as time passes, as we keep working on this project more and more.
Right. Exactly.
Great. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us, and yeah, see you guys on the next session. Bye.
See you guys. Take
See you
care.
guys.
Bye-bye.